chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Hey everyone, good day. Episode 262, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. Could be 263, but as always, a lot of volleyball over the weekend. For College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20, it's Brad Rostratter of UC San Diego, Jay Hosick of George Mason, and Dan Frand of Lewis. Missing today, other Theo fights. Theo Edwards of Cal State Northridge. Hope your boy is feeling better and that you can jump on with us again next week. But unfortunately, I got to start this week's episode with some sad news that we discovered literally within the last 12 to 24 hours. And a long time advocate, supporter, fan of volleyball, but I really feel like she had loved the men's volleyball team just because it's men's. But Cindy Lewis, longtime reporter and journalist for the Hawaii Star Bulletin and Hawaii Star Advertiser, passed unexpectedly Saturday night, Sunday morning. And hits close to home because a dear friend of mine is her son, Tiff Wells, who's a renowned ESPN Honolulu broadcaster and calls all the matches. And they're a unique tandem in the years that Tiff got into broadcasting and because they're the mother-son duo. There's a statement that he had given to the local paper saying that we spent more time in the arena together than we actually did spend at home. So I thought that was a great quote. But Lewis is 70 when she passed, and she was the first woman sports writer at the Honolulu Star Bulletin in 1981, first woman to be the sports editor of the daily newspaper in the state, and was known for her coverage of University of Hawaii women's sports, particularly UH volleyball. She's remembered as one of the state's primary stewards of volleyball. She covered the Rainbow Wahine National Championships in 82, 83, and 87, and cultivated volleyball on her blog, Volley Shots, for almost 15 years, and was inducted into the UH Sports Circle of Honor just last year. So, incredible woman who loved the game, followed the game closely, and what a great sense of humor. I didn't get to actually sit and chat with her until the national championship or the NCAAs in Columbus, Ohio a few years ago. But she touched a lot of people with the coverage of the matches and anything she's at, and always a great personality. So our thoughts, condolences, prayers, and sympathies to Tiff, his wife Taryn, and the rest of the Wells family. And we appreciated the time that we've had with your mom, Cindy, and we know she was a diehard of the game. And hearing her talk about her endearing of former players in the releases I've seen, just she will always remember all the players she covered. Hostas Theoharides is his name, Jakob Tella, and a few others that were in the article. So, but with that, I wanted to see if any of you guys had anything to add in regards to the recent passing of Cindy Lewis of Hawaii.
Yeah, I'll be brief here. Thoughts and prayers go out to the Lewis family and the Wells family. It's such a bummer. She obviously had been such an ingrained part of that Hawaii Ohana for so many years, and we all have had conversations with her over the years, and she's just a really special, unique person. She loved all things Hawaii volleyball, and so just a big, big shout out and thoughts and prayers to everybody out there, and thoughts are with you guys.
Yeah,
Tiff,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
I say my first interaction, I just got the Lewis job and opened up at the Outrigger in January. So I just taken Lewis, was just coming into the sanction stuff, all that stuff. And we were playing, I think BYU had won the national championship. So this was 05. She was just super gracious and awesome. And I met her. And so, yeah, I sentiments to family, friends, all the Hawaiian contingent in terms of that.
Yeah, similar to Dan, I've known Tiff for now 7 years or so now, but my first time as a head coach going out there 3 years ago, getting to meet her and just like sitting with her and talking volleyball with her and learning about her story and my journey, and just a great person, and obviously did fantastic work and had a massive impact. on everyone associated with volleyball, men's, women's, Hawaii or non-Hawaii. And yeah, just thoughts and prayers go out to Tiff, the rest of the family, the Hawaii volleyball community. That's some sad news for sure.
Yeah, the volleyball community loses a great one who is very passionate about the game. So, Godspeed to you, Cindy, and hopefully we can do a little bit of honoring you and covering the men's game like you did and the rest of volleyball. And I know you caught a couple episodes of College Volleyball Weekly / the Net Live because you had some great things to say in our conversations in recent years about it. So with that, we move into our segment and there's a lot of volleyball this last weekend. And, because I've wasn't as organized as I'd like to be this morning, I'm going to throw it out to the coaching panel to see what they want to discuss first, because there was a lot. And there were seating implications, at-large implications, just solid brawls happening throughout the week in volleyball, some expected, some unexpected. So who wants to take the first stab at what we're recovering? Oh, deer in headlights. Jay?
I think we just go where we were and go to the Outrigger and talk about what happened out there.
Okay, that's a place.
Yeah.
Forget saving that for the end so we can keep our viewers. I'll just turn off the show right after we cover the Outrigger.
Oh, sorry.
Well, hey, let's go me first. I mean, ultimately, we took a couple tough losses.
Yep. Elephant in the room. That's right. There we go.
Yeah, so we just do the elephant in the room. And so, I mean, ultimately went to Lindenwood, and they were coming off the Hawaii trip, and they played great. I think put a ton of pressure on us, and we had a hard time responding, and from the serve receive and first ball touch stuff. And so kudos to that group. I think they're certainly talented. They'll probably get a few more wins in conference. And then we had to rebound to McKendree, and McKendree's coming on a 9-match streak, and they're playing some great volleyball. And thought we battled at times well, and but kudos to that group. All their pins hit around 300, and we're in double-digit kills, and Nathan ran their offense pretty well. And we leaned on OG with 28 kills, but it wasn't quite enough at the right time, and ultimately drop in 5, 15, 13. Yeah, I think for us, we'll regroup and get after it. But I think McHenry puts himself in a pretty good spot in our league and is ultimately leading is it 8-1 or 9-1? And Lindenwood got another win against Quincy, so they're kind of making a climb a little bit. And so there's a hodgepodge in the middle, a little bit at the top, and a lot of conference to go. Keep going. So
hodgepodge makes it sound like a Hobby Lobby show or something.
Something like that.
Hey, Dan, your Lindenwood match. So, Brendan Luthane, 15 kills, but it was the two guys behind him, point scoring wise, offensively, that were on fire. Carter Stenmark hit 571 of 14 kills, and Owen Walsh, 11 kills, 0 errors, hit 733. They're doing something different because you guys are usually like super strong in keeping teams down hitting percentage wise. I just was shocked when I saw those two guys' numbers.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm back to the drawing board, Rob. So gotta work on. I mean, we outdug McKendree by 15, so it was a good response after a Lindenwood match where our defense was non-existent. So I think in general, like we can kind of be a little up and down. We go back to when we played Loyola. We put a ton of serving pressure on them and defended the net well. And different tempos, different style of teams. That's all kind of part of it sometimes as you're a coach. And sometimes you have a little bit better matchups against some teams versus others. And the coaches on here know that. And sometimes your team plays to a better style than other. And so sometimes you're working on that, and sometimes you get good matchups. And so, yeah.
Yep. Anything to add, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll add with the word hodgepodge. I think it's appropriate. All of the tchotchkes and trinkets behind Dan in his office. There's so much stuff in there.
Hey, just for Volley Talk people, I'm not retiring. Sorry. So somebody on Volley Talk says, "Hey, is Coach Friend retiring? He doesn't seem into it." I'm very much into it, Volley Talk. And I work my butt off, but no, I'm not. So I got a few years left in my bag. I hope, anyway. So.
Well, Dan, I was gonna say in your Lindenwood match, it seemed the camera's on you quite a bit, and you're a lot of frustration. You can see, even though you still maintain your posture of just standing there, you can just see something like forming in you. Visually.
Well,
I'm pretty sure I'm all checked in. Don't worry about me. So
for those of you that
I even got a red card this year. So like, what's going on? Yeah. So
yeah, that's a rarity. For those of you that know Dan, he is the hands down fastest walker of all the coaches out there. It takes him all of about the full 3 minutes in between sets to get from one side of the gym to the other. Very intentional walk. I'll tell you, I'll comment on that match. Dan's group is arguably in the beginning of the year. I think maybe he thought it could have been maybe not necessarily a rebuilding year, but a year of question marks. And they have done some really nice things over the course of the year in terms of putting people in right positions, and their setters doing a real nice job. Tyler's dishing out. Losing to McKendree 15-13 in the fifth is not a massive loss. It's a bummer that a team has to lose in a match that tightly contested. I would not be surprised to see Lewis go deep into the MIVA tournament. Obviously, I think McKendree is going to go deep. You might see those two play again, and a team that Dan coaches, they're going to be well prepared. They're going to recognize the challenges that they faced in this match, and it might come back to help them, not hurt them later on down the line. I think it's going to be a matter of depth and how much rest people can get, but. Yeah, it was a fun match to watch. Shuley for McKendree is really doing some nice things, and the MIVA again is a hot conference. There's a lot of teams in that could do a lot of damage no matter what. So I know Dan's feeling the loss, but for any of you out there that do think Dan's retiring or he's not engaged, you don't know Dan very well. He's absolutely fine. He'll be all right. He'll get his guys ready to go, which is why he probably has to leave early today, because he's probably getting back in the gym and training with them right now. So
film at 11.
All right, Brad.
Yeah, I got to watch and tune into the McKendree Lewis matchup, and just super competitive volleyball. And some of the set scores, especially early, were a little lopsided. I think one was like 25-19, 25-20, and then there was a few where it started off with a big lead and then got tighter and tighter as the set went on. And I just thought it was such a fun match to watch. And I remember Shuley going up and hammering a ball, and then 2 plays later, OG hammers a ball, who's played extremely impressive throughout the night, especially out of the back row attacking. He was real solid. And then Shuley goes up and gets blocked, and they exchange some nice MIVA niceties with each other. And and I just thought it was a great environment. The announcer on the call for McKendree did a great job with it. And then coming down to that fifth set, it was just back and forth. And Shuley obviously has been playing really well and at a high level. And I think Sam Hoskin and Zacchaeus,
Zydakis.
Yeah.
Zadakis, Nikos, the opposite for McKendree. Both those guys ended up having some big kills in key moments that really kind of set the ball going in favor for McKendree a little bit more. And Dan did everything he could, using every challenge and trying any which way to get that last point. But McKendree was just a little better. But that's going to be a semifinal match potentially for the MIVA playoffs, which is I'm going to be tuning in for that again.
All right. Let's move on. Elephant in the room, other teams, and that would be, let's go to Jay, because on your screen here, or my screen here.
Well, I've got 2. I'll talk about our weekend. We played against a scrappy NJIT team on Friday, who at the time had gotten us in 5 when we saw them first off this year. The thing for us is we went out there to their place a couple weeks ago. We won the first set after being down pretty handily in the first, and came back and took it. And we were up 23-20 in the second and let that one slip away from us, and then ultimately beat them in a third, and then we ended up losing in the fifth. And my guys were not happy about that. So NJIT came in this weekend, and I thought my guys responded really well. We've made some new lineup changes. We've tinkered around a little bit. We worked on a few things, and we ended up beating them in 4 in our place, which is really nice. Put us in first place in conference, and it's still a long way to go in conference. So being first place now doesn't necessarily mean it's smooth sailing from here on out. Everybody in that conference is really solid. And, I know a lot of people want to, crap down on the EIVA. It's not a bad conference. We're all battling right now, but Then we ended up playing a really tough Merrimack team. Merrimack, for those of you that don't know, is a conference that used to be in the NEC. They are no longer in the NEC conference. They're independent, but they're looking to come into the EIVA in the next couple of years. And they're scrappy. They got some really solid players, a couple guys from Florida, a couple guys from local up northeast. And they come in hot and heavy. And they're a team that has a chip on their shoulder. And, you know, they've beaten a couple of teams over the season that can raise some eyebrows. And you know, we thought if we just go in and let our play dictate how, you know, the match is going to go, we should be okay. And yeah, luckily we came out of there in 3, felt really good about our performance and put us in a good position for this week coming up, in which we see Damon, who's also a very strong team. And then we get the Fighting Rob Sparrows coming in on the weekend, which should be fun. So we're looking forward to that. We beat Irvine last year, and I'm sure they feel that from a little bit from before, and they're going to come in hot and heavy, ready to give it back to us. But that's my first thing. The second elephant in the room, listen, I know we're talking about them a lot. Long Beach has only lost 4 sets on the year so far. Let that sink in for a second. They've only lost 4 sets.
We got one.
Yeah, Lewis got one. Pepperdine went 5 with them, and then I forgot who the other one was. But
Queens or something.
everything.
No, wait. I gotta look it up. I saw it myself. Like, what? You gotta be kidding.
Yeah, 4 sets. 4
Might
sets.
have been Lindenwood.
It might have been, and that's early in the year. So yeah, they're a team to beat right now, and I don't know who's gonna do it coming up. I know Irvine has them in a few weeks coming up in the Black and Blue series
Next weekend.
I wish USC and Long Beach was scheduled this year to play preseason or in season, and unfortunately they're not. But yeah, they're going to be a team to beat. So I just wanted to mention that little elephant in the room.
All right. Let's go to Brad. You had a couple matches. That's your elephant in the room. Go for it. And it's UCLA that took that 1 set from Long Beach.
Oh, yeah.
The missing one.
Yeah, for us, we had a busy week. Being at UC San Diego in the quarter system, it's last week is their like kind of where all their assignments are due, papers, interviews. There's just a lot of things going on in the classroom. And because I'm a little crazy, we've still scheduled 2 matches with Princeton, and then we had our conference match with Santa Barbara, who they're going through the same stuff up there as well, and they had to travel down to us, which makes it a little bit trickier on them. But yeah, against Princeton, we played all right. First set was very, very ugly. A lot of hitting errors on both sides of the net, a lot of service errors, and they ended up starting off strong and taking us down. And then we responded, started playing a little bit cleaner. And then as we transitioned into our conference match with Santa Barbara on Friday, it was a tough one for me. My voice is still a little shot, but my voice was completely gone from the week of practice, and I'm trying to talk to the guys, and I just have to scream at full force, and they still can't even hear me. And it was a lot of fun though, and it was a good environment in the gym. And then obviously being able to get a conference win is always nice as the guys head into finals. So they get a day off today, and they get to focus on some finals, and then we'll do some optional stuff the rest of the week. But yeah, lots going on. But all in all, playing some pretty good volleyball, serving well, and continuing to grow our offense and our team. So.
Well, Big West, still very early on in conference play, but seeing UC Santa Barbara, I mean, Rick's had to deal with a lot of changes, the injuries, and finally got Jess Bianchi back. But, you know, we're not even like 1 match in for each of the teams in the Big West to start off play. But, I mean, that still can pan out any other way. I mean, Long Beach State is obviously the hands-on favorite, but they're going to be teams pressing. You know, Northridge and Long Beach have had their pair already, and you know, I think if anyone had a pretty good chance, it was Northridge, and Long Beach State came out 3-0 both nights against Northridge. Just shows that how deep they are. And Long Beach has changed their lineup. Soto Shipani is not in. Sebas Sani or Sebastiano Sani at that other OH position. So, Alan,
What? You mean they got another foreigner they put out there? Come on.
Well, he doesn't count. He's from Maryland.
That was from Maryland. He's from my backyard. Don't remind me.
So Irvine was idle. So there's my elephant in the room for the week. With that, we can go to Brad and talk about Outrigger since he wanted to jump the topics. So we were going to let the coaches panel took over. They want to get right to the gritty. So you guys will like drop off after we talk about Outrigger. So
Hey, let's just say this. Nobody gets to pick Dylan Klein because he's just going to be one of the players of the week. No, he's already there. He's already there. You don't get to pick him. You got to find somebody else because there's no way. If you watch that last match against Hawaii, it was ridiculous. So it's like,
well, so Brad, you opened up the can. What do you want to talk about Outrigger?
I was just going to talk about Dylan Klein, and then Dan just beat me to it. No, I think for me, what really the most impressive point is just USC's, especially the last match against Hawaii, them being able to really lose the serve and pass battle, still hit more effectively, stop them, turn and score more in transition was extremely impressive. I just think the block defense that USC is doing right now has gotten really organized, and they've all gotten on the same page. And you add that with some athletes like Dylan Klein, Sterling Foley, Parker Tompkinson. It ends up being a really good formula and some pretty high level volleyball being played on that end of things. So I think with Nygaard being a middle blocker and getting the block defense all on the same page there, that's been something that's really showed off. I think they held Penn State to negative, and then Ball State was hitting under 100 for most of the match. And then lastly against Hawaii, they held them to just under 300. So just seeing them hold those teams that all are pretty darn good to such ineffective attacking, I think that's something to continue to watch. And it'll be really interesting to see how that unfolds within the MPSF, where you have teams like UCLA, Pepperdine, Grand Canyon, who all have been hitting at really high clips throughout the season.
Well, just so you don't get any hate emails or jabber on Volley Talk, Brad, USC hit 390, Hawaii hit 303. You want to get that right.
Oh, my bad. Just under 304.
All right. Rest of the panel, thoughts on, I guess we're going to USC general theme at the Outrigger.
I mean, USC's having a year right now. And, we've talked about them sporadically throughout the course of the year, but they've got a good group of kids that are fighting hard together. The culture has changed. Nygaard, thank God, now is not getting the hate mail of fire Nygaard every single week. I mean, it drove me nuts hearing that stuff over the last few years, but I couldn't be more happy for him and Gary and Prater and all those guys. They've been working their butts off recruiting and getting great kids in there, but it's finally starting to click. And this year they're seeing the fruits of that labor. So SC is in my eyes right now in the MPSF, it's UCLA, USC, and Pepperdine. I think those are the three teams at the moment. I know Stanford's in the mix. I'm not saying they're out of it. So please, Palo Alto, stop, don't send me any hate mail. And obviously I know there's a couple other teams that could get hot. I think Grand Canyon might have cooled off a little bit right now. And I think the rest of them are maybe BYU not having the year that maybe they wanted. So I think it's those three, and I think Stanford is right there knocking on the door. I think those are the three in the MPSF that are going to be fighting for that title. And out of those three, one of them ain't making it. And that's really, really difficult because there's some really good teams in that group. So it'll be interesting to see. But Dylan Klein is an absolute wonder kid. I mean, he's jumping out of the gym. He's hammering balls that aren't even in the window where he should be swinging hard. He's still getting kills. Tompkinson is being a real force in the middle, not only attack-wise, but blocking-wise. I mean, the kid's 7 foot, so obviously he's going to be in some people's airspace. But, yeah, SC is solid. And I'm excited to finally see a good SC team late in the season make a push because it's been a while since they've been there. I think the last time I saw them in a Final Four type situation was when Ferguson was there. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this.
Yeah. Well, Jay, in 2022, at the MPSF tournament, they were making a pretty darn good run at the end there. And unfortunately, I believe the night before their match, Jeff's wife was in a pretty bad car accident.
Yeah.
So, I mean, although he was all there, there had to be a little bit of that affecting him. And they went down to at the time, coaching panel contributor David Hunt was a coach at Pepperdine. They fell in 5 in that MPSF semi. So it was close. Like Jeff has always been on the verge. and I feel like this could be a good year for SC. But let's go over to Dan.
This could be.
Well, I mean, we played them in the quarterfinal of 2019. So Jeff's had some really at the NCAA tournament. So that was at Long Beach when we played those guys.
Mhm.
So he's had some really talented groups, and so it's good to see he's got a younger group, I would think, in this that's playing right here. But Jack Dutra, I mean, I said that right? Jack
It's Duker
Duker.
because
yeah.
someone else who's on social media called him Doucher. I'm like,
No,
oh,
I didn't.
dude.
Duker. Yeah, I mean, he had and he's from Hawaii. Correct me, right?
Yep.
I think, and homecoming for him, and had a fantastic series in those 3 matches. And we already talked about Dylan, and I mean, I was up at 3 a.m. watching that thing, and it was just some fantastic volleyball. And Hawaii made a push, which was fantastic by them. And Luis, right? He had how many kills did he have? 26. They're opposite.
I only got Christian's.
Christian's was yeah.
Tetrisky had 23 kills.
20, yeah. I mean, that was a career high for him.
Yeah.
At the same time. So it wasn't like Hawaii was playing bad volleyball. They made a great late push, and it was some fantastic volleyball to watch. That place had 7,500 people plus in there. The Hawaii fans were rocking, and but yeah, I think it had some big implications. I think USC put themselves back in kind of this conversation about the at-large. Certainly, there's a lot of things that unfold, but that was a key game. And then Hawaii's going to certainly they got to play Irvine, they got to play Long Beach. There's some key matches coming down the roads in some of these at-large conversations. So it'll be some exciting volleyball with some talented kids.
Yeah, that at-large you talk about is going to be really tricky because you got Irvine. You got USC, you got Hawaii, you got all these teams that kind of beat up on each other. It'll be interesting to see how that all pans out.
Well, I think every match is going to start. I mean, you got plenty of matches left, and you have conference tournament matches, which are all going to play dividends in terms of how that falls out.
And it's crazy. The lineups have changed too, with even starting with the teams that were all undefeated through week 4. Obviously, we already talked about Long Beach State with Sonny now in the starting lineup, but Irvine's a different team from the first match of the season. They've gone bigger. They've got also a few changes to the UCLA roster. Actually, it's injuries because now they got Ito David back, and Rowan was out for a little bit, and then McQuiggan stepped in the lineup. Giving Irvine their first 2 losses of the year. But it's amazing seeing these little tweaks that have happened that have changed the way these teams have looked as we get closer to the end of the season.
No matter what, if you're looking at it, one of those teams, you said, hey, Long Beach won and UCLA won. And then you just talked about just those other 3. We're not all, and there's a bunch of other talented teams, don't get me wrong. But then you talk about, you've got Irvine and you've got USC and you got Hawaii. One of them aren't there, which is just a travesty. I mean, like, and you
16 teams, NCAA, 16 teams.
Just a travesty. And yeah, anyway, I'm on that committee. So I just like,
come on, Dan, you're checked out.
I guess something like that.
Well, the Outrigger did not disappoint.
I'm going to give all my hats away. I guess I'm so checked out. Dude.
Yeah. The Outrigger didn't disappoint again. And as always, there is always at least one upset. Obviously Lewis and UC Irvine last year, and then UCLA Penn State the other year before that. I mean, there are so many big matches and such a great tournament to watch.
One of my trinkets, Jay, you get this cool little thing.
A thing.
This cool thing.
Tiki man.
The Tiki man. So, there were, this is the thing. You had Christian Tetrisky going off offensively, and man, he was going off literally, and USC was just playing bonkers. But Hawaii is going to be pressing Long Beach State when they match up. And both those matches, Long Beach State goes to Hawaii, and that place is going to be sold out for those two.
Didn't those guys get into it last time, like something like a couple of years ago? Charlie and Alan.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I think that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. It happened. Like, it was all on the internet, and there was videos of it. I remember.
Well, there was a little dust up at the end of the USC match in Hawaii. There was a little little talk through the net there, a little hot tempers, which, hey man, that shows you how invested those guys are. Right, Dan? How invested are they?
Well, Trent Rosenthal, I was trying to find the all tournament team. Wasn't I just saw the USC photo of Dylan Klein, Jack Duker, and Caleb Blanchett. So I'm not sure if they were the all part of the all tournament team, but I couldn't find out who. I think Savitsky Lynn, I believe, was a name that was mentioned on there as well. But I couldn't find the media on it, so I can't confirm. So if anyone knows, message me. So, with that, any let's go to the next pick the next match to talk about from week 11.
Well, Mount Olive got 2 wins, which were huge, and one was against Belmont Abbey. And I thought that was fantastic for those guys. So puts them in kind of the driver's seat of the Conference Carolinas. So
yeah, they go to 8-0 and Belmont Abbey down to 8-2. And earlier in the week, Belmont Abbey beat Barton, who was in the 2-3 spot also in the Conference Carolinas.
And one other piece, Tate Sandevig, who plays on Mount Olive. I mean, phenomenal young man, played for us. He started at Mount Olive, came to us for a year because he's part of the Iowa group, Max and Tyler, and then is back at Mount Olive. He's battling cancer and still playing.
Oh,
wow.
You want a story. Like, fantastic young man. Like, we were in Georgia, and him and one of his teammates came and watched Tyler and Max. And he has just got through some stuff and going into chemo. And so a fantastic young man who just is grinding it out and back on the court competing already. Super impressed by him. And he will be my player, by the way, just so you know, just for the fact of what he's going through and how he's helping that team. I don't have his stat line in front of me. I can look it up, but yeah.
13 kills on 26 attempts. And as I watched him play, and he was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
He must be under the weather or something.
He's
Yeah.
in chemo right now, so it's to keep him from getting sick.
That's amazing. Wow.
Amazing. Yes. So
wow, the Courage Award for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So Jay, I guess that goes to you. Pick a match.
Well, I think I'm gonna pick the Penn State match only because I know they went 0 for the weekend in Hawaii. And Saturday, I've been a part of these tournaments before when I was with Penn State. And part of the challenge is on Saturday, especially if you're not having a good week, it kind of is a throwaway match of sorts. But they almost beat Ball State, and they went 5 with them. And they're messing around a little bit the lineup. I don't know if somebody's injured or not, or some kids are tired. I mean, they've been on the road for a while, so it was they're definitely a little bit weary right now. But Penn State's famous for having years where maybe it's a little bit of a rebuilding year, maybe it's a little bit of a young year. And by the end of the year, they're firing on all cylinders. And Penn State's going to be a team that I know a lot of people are asking, what's going on? What's going on? Pav's just figuring it out. The staff they've got a well-qualified staff. You got Colin McMillan, you got Pat Schwarn, you got Ryan Perrott, you got Pav. There's 4 really good coaches on that staff.
I don't know a Ryan Perrott. It's just Rock.
It's just Rock. Well, I don't know if the fans know Rock or not, so I wanted to give him a little love. I mean, it's not like that staff doesn't know what they're doing, right? They're not coming in there and they're all kind of doing cartwheels and everything. Going, what do we do today? I don't know what to do. They're just fine. Their kids are working hard. So don't be surprised if Penn State doesn't pull a couple out here moving on down the line, because this last week of volleyball has, I think, given them a little bit of inspiration of, look, we know we got some bumps and bruises, but we're going to figure some things out. So don't be surprised if Penn State doesn't figure it out down the line a little bit.
Well, you're only 4 matches into EIVA play, right? All Penn State has to do is get into the tournament, and that is going to be scary. I mean, Pav's been at 30 years now. So I think he kind of knows what he's doing, and they're capable, especially with the way it's panning out in the EIVA right now. Teams are getting better, and they're going to get to the tournament, and they're going to have to go head to head. And that's where it's going to be important. So good point, though, for sure, Jay.
Yep.
All right. We go back. Dan, I guess.
Oh, back to me?
Yeah.
Well, We could just go, I mean, there's some other matches, but we could just go to our players, and that way we get to all the topics, and I don't have to leave before we get through everything. So,
All right.
but the other one I would have mentioned would have been Pepperdine and Stanford.
Oh, that's what I was going to mention, but wanted to give
Yeah.
you guys a chance to mention it.
Yeah, I think a couple key conference wins there for those guys and some key pieces. I mean, Ryan Barnett had two pretty good solid matches, 19 kills and then 14 kills, which is pretty impressive. And certainly Hartkey in the lineup. But yeah, two big conference wins that are huge as they continue to move forward for Pep.
Yep. Yeah. Ryan Barnett, 19 kills. I was surprised that they contained Hartkey because he's when he came to Irvine, I did not realize how big and how long his arms were. And he hits a really hard ball. So I say he only had 13 kills, but he hit 345. But I guess if you got Barnett playing hot, why go away from him? But
And with Stanford, you're going to have Teo Snui over there on the left side blocking against him, and he's also big. So big against big is a little bit of an equalizer. But then also in that match, a huge shout out to James Eady and Gabe Dyer. I mean, Gabe Dyer, especially with Stanford, passed a little bit better than Pepperdine over the course of the two matches. And just being able to hit 330 or so and be so efficient. And especially James Eady, his numbers over both matches, he had almost 520 kills out of the middle, 35 attempts. So a nice performance out of a middle blocker there for Pepperdine. But yeah, huge job sweeping that weekend for them up at Stanford and putting them in a great spot for some seeding into the MPSF tournament.
Yeah, if you look at the MPSF standings, don't be fooled. Stanford's at 8 at 0-4, but they've had some tough matches. So, and then Pepperdine is 4-0. So, again, everyone's like, oh, what's going to happen to the polls in the top 5 this week? Like, who cares what happens in the polls? It's going to come down to the conference tournament.
Yeah.
Hate to overgeneralize like that, but that's just the fact of the matter. So,
I can't wait for this year's bracket. It's going to be so much fun.
Well, with that, I didn't want to avoid Ohio State because in the MIVA, as Dan so called it, the hodgepodge. I mean, I'm watching that one because you have McHenry at 8-1, and then you have 4 teams right there in that next podge of teams. And on the outside bubble is Lindenwood, who's got some big wins this season in MIVA as well. So I'm really watching them because Ohio State, they had a pretty decent win over Queens. Stanislav Hachinsky, 12 kills, 1 air hit, 579 in the 3-1 victory. But, Ohio State could easily pump to the top. So
plenty of volleyball left. Ohio State comes and plays us and Loyola this week. So those will be 2 big key matches right there. And so you can certainly see Ohio State make a second half surge.
And even Lindenwood, like Rob, you talked about, they're obviously a strong team. They could beat anyone. Like they could go in and play McKendree Loyola and beat them. And they've played a tough schedule, so they're going to be battle tested. Like,
yeah, they've got McKendree.
That's tournament's going to be fun.
McKendree's got Lindenwood and Quincy coming up this week, so those will be some key matches right there.
Well, another team that's on the bubble, and one you had mentioned was Grand Canyon is, they've kind of cooled off a little bit, but they're just hanging right there in the middle of the pack. And again, conference tournament time, but you still got UCLA and USC atop of that conference right now. And no one's really saying about BYU, and we know they're capable as well. So a lot of volleyball to be had, I guess, is what we're coming down to. So I guess any other matches you guys want to touch on, or do you want to jump in and pick our players of the week?
Jump in.
All right, jump in. Well, I think no one's going to claim Dylan Klein because everyone just knows. Is that, or did Dan already claim him?
Well, I didn't claim him.
No.
Give it to Brad. Let him go first.
I'll go first. Okay, mine will be. Well, I'm going Caleb Blanchette for USC. James Eady, middle blocker for Pepperdine.
All right, I like it. The setter and a middle. Jay.
No, let's give it to Dan first. I'll go last.
Okay.
Well, I already talked about Tate Sandovic from Mount Olive, and then Ryan Barnett with Pepperdine.
All right. Jay.
hands down, no question, Cindy Lewis.
Oh, good call.
Good call.
I just wanted to add mine in there because I felt like this kid has just been overlooked all season long. But watching him play in the Outrigger, being I guess the unsung hero, Johnny Dykstra, libero for USC. In service, Hawaii has got to be one of the toughest serving teams in the nation. And the heat that Louis Sakanoko, Christian Tetrisky, Tread Rosenthal, they're all bringing a hard serve, but he's able to keep a playable ball off of those serves for USC to get that win. And there was one rally where he got bombed on 3 times with perfect digs. Ball was hit inside the block. He slipped into that 4-4 pocket and boom, transition point. He's diving all over the place. So, it would have been Dylan Klein, but everyone knows. But Johnny Dykstra kept the Trojans in the fight each rally. So, and he had flowing blonde hair too.
And let's I want to just what's the hot take, if you will. I know everyone and the Volley Talk people are like, what, no love for the player of the week? They're getting the love already. We don't need to add to it. We're finding other people to give a little love to. The player of the week's the national player of the week. If he's not national player of the week, I'd be surprised.
He's
But
going to be MPSF player of the week.
Just because we don't pick him on here, it doesn't mean that it's not special or unique, everybody. Just calm down.
We're drawing attention to the other phenomenal performances that we've seen.
Correct.
And that's why we do this, because there's far more than what these darn coaches in the AVCA committee, Dan, do. So,
correct.
Yeah, and there's some great storylines, and that's why we pick them. Oh gosh, I had another thought there, but I lost it quickly there. Well, I guess let's jump into our hot mic moment, which is the stuff that we talk about before coming onto the show that we normally, just kind of shoot it and then kind of let it form from there. But I figured it's so interesting what we talk about. Why not throw it out there for you guys to know? So what's your hot mic topics? Does anyone have one ready to throw out?
I have one. Jay alluded to it earlier, but my hot mic moment is 25 miles. See Long Beach State. Two of the top 5 teams, and we're not getting a matchup of them playing this year.
You may have to repeat that because the audio kind of went in and out.
25 miles, Long Beach State to USC, and we don't get a top 5 matchup with them playing in the non-conference season. I think everyone would love to see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything to add, guys? Just
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right. Dan, you got a hot mic topic?
No, I don't have any hot mic topics. Sorry.
Well, you had a great interview with JT Volleyball over the weekend, I believe.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, he did ask me a question, and I just said that, the social media piece and the continued push and advertisement of men's volleyball is an area that it's great, like, what you do, Rob, and what he does, and what some these other young social medias that are pushing content. It's great for our game, and it's unfortunate we can't get the NCAA, but we're not the only collegiate championship sport that the NCAA doesn't push. So it's not like they're just isolating men's volleyball. It's just kind of how they look at it. They have their key sports that the NCAA kind of pushes from that platform, and so we have to find alternative methods to do it. And we've got a great product, but we're also 50, 60 teams, and then D3 is 120. So you compare that to some of the other sports that, women's volleyball has 1,500 or plus. Basketballs are way, so like we bitch and moan about it on one side, but we have to be self-serving on the other side and find ways to kind of push our product and kind of keep asking the NCAA. It doesn't mean we don't ask and find different avenues and who can do it for us, but that's the topic that tends to get hot, and especially towards the end of the year. So we just got to keep kind of finding avenues. I think what our show is great. There's another show, The Pipe, right? That's been going on.
The Pipe?
Yeah, Set the Pipe. I think that's just another avenue that they've interviewed. Alan was on there and Hawks was on there, and they've done some other thing. All that stuff's just fantastic and great. You've got Larry Hamill, who's got a new volleyball piece that he's publishing, because Volleyball Mag's been taking a different direction a little bit. And so I think any of that stuff we can continue to do is great.
Yeah. Good call. All right, Jay.
Well, I got one here. I got two, but I got one. One is Dan's office. My OCD is kicking in. All the pictures are crooked. Everything's all over the place. It's haphazard. I feel like I got to reach to the screen and straighten some of that stuff out. But my second one is April 7th, everybody. April 7th. And if you don't know what that date is, that's the date that the judge is supposed to rule about roster limits and things moving forward. And I'm hearing some rumblings of some potential solutions. I'm not sure how much they're going to move the needle or how much they're going to get approved, but April 7th is going to be a day that a lot of us are going to remember, and not necessarily just in men's volleyball. It's going to be across the board. Every sport in every university is going to feel something. So I think we all have that date circled, and we're all anxious and excited to hear what the ruling is going to be, and we all hope that there are some calmer heads and common sense comes into play here.
Yeah.
My hot topic off that is Division II still doesn't know where they sit at. I can't opt in, even if I wanted to. So all the collegiate championship sports that are in that space, bowling, gymnastics, water polo, all those, like, they can't do anything from that standpoint. So if Jay's opting in or Brad's opting in as a Division I, and they can get, and not saying that they will, but they do have that opportunity to go up scholarship, even if it's 1 or 2, we can't even do it. So the competitive equity of that kind of goes out the window a little bit. Now we can choose not to, but I think that's a one for me. That's a hot topic for sure, where it's like we might choose to opt in and, hey, I want to be at 6 or 7 scholarships because half my league is going to be in that space, and we don't even have the choice or opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
And Dan, would the MIVA end up stepping in and more guidance, or is it going to be strictly institutional?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, they basically said they haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
So, like,
I think it's similar, like even within the Big West, if how much structure there'll be within it. Yeah. It depends until that April 7th, and then everything kind of takes the next step and moves forward. Then they'll be able to put more clear bylaws in place.
Right.
I'm assuming
it's the institution first, and then certainly conferences can put them in. But you're right. I think the conferences will wait, but you'll still have you'll still have the NIL stuff that moves in-house. So you'll have that other bucket, and now it's not an outside bucket, because now people will be like, hey, I can give the NIL money within the school and it's a tax write-off, where the NIL money before that was given was never a tax write-off because it was run by an LLC. So there's some interesting changes with some of that and how that affects, and we're a pretty small peon in it, but you want to talk about, hey, I want to have some competitive equity, or at least have the opportunity to be in that space. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to respond to 2 of your hot mic moments that were brought up, maybe even 3 now I think about it. But you mentioned the Set the Pipe podcast, great podcast, by the way, but one of their guests was, you mentioned, head coach Alan Knipe of Long Beach State, and they happened to discuss a topic that Dan mentioned, which was the coverage of men's volleyball. And they put that up on social. And I bring it up because I think when I text you guys, like, look at that. NCAA Beach has, a lot of activity on the NCAA volleyball account. And Alan had pointed out, he's like, the last post on NCAA M volleyball was May of 2024. So, I think there's an equity discussion there they had brought up. It's like, we're missing a part of this game. That's, higher, faster, stronger, great action. But, and to your point, Dan, it's like, I know that there are a lot of other sports that aren't being covered, and, and which is why I'm thankful for digital content creators. And last week, a shameless self-promotion plug, sorry about it, but a guy asked me what the success of men's volleyball growing this last few years has been to. And I said, it's the digital content creators, because there's been neglect on the NCAA side. But these guys are taking up this space, putting incredible artistic content with action, music, great edits, highlighting athletes. And I am so appreciative. I get my news from some of those guys because they're first to report, because there's guys across the nation. And the irony is, one of the guys is actually in India he messaged me and said, I follow your stuff, but I follow these other guys and then create my content from India. So, it's out there. People want to see the stuff. So appreciate you guys. And speaking of hot content, there was one of the, we've avoided naming our player of the week, which is going to be Dylan Klein if, the rest of the world didn't already believe so. But he had one of the gnarliest highlight reels from this last week against Ball State. And there's been debate on what set that's called. A 32, I thought it was a burn set, but he comes up with his approach, bangs it, goes thumb down, and had to be like 5-6 foot on the other side and in between area 4 and area 5. And I don't know who the hitter was from Ball State, but he took it in the midsection almost.
It was actually Penn State that he did that against.
Is that Penn State? I thought I saw black on the uniform, but that was a crazy hit. And he did it again against Hawaii, but there's no defender sitting in that spot. But man, Dylan Klein already getting 50K views on that video or likes. And the views are well over 1 million. So
how many programs are going to try to make sure they institute that play and it looks nowhere near the same? Hey, coach, can we get the 32 burn or whatever? And I'm going to fake out and go. And yeah, anyway, that's coming up sometime today. Coach, I want to work on this.
So when you're outside, say, I want to run that play, coach.
All right. Well, add 10 more inches to your vertical. That'll be great.
We got about 6 minutes remaining for Dan's got to run, but what matches are you watching this week? We'll start with Dan. How about that?
Give me off the top of my head, I mean, I could spit off our league stuff. I mean, that's what's the most intriguing.
Well, let's do the CVW showdowns.
Well,
Irvine against George Mason and Dan against Theo.
Yeah, those will be 2 pretty good matches to watch. In our league,
I'm just going to sit back with my popcorn and just be ready to roast 2 of you guys on Monday.
Yeah. Theo wants some payback from last year for sure. So, you've got, like I talked about, Ohio State comes and plays us and Loyola. McKendree's playing Lindenwood and Quincy. So those are a couple key matches within the MIVA for sure. So.
Yep. All right, Jay, what you watching?
He already covered the ones I was going to talk about, but I'm going to cover my #1 match of the week. Sponsored by one of my favorite TV series, The Righteous Gems, or The Righteous Gemstones, BYU versus Grand Canyon. And the reason why is both teams are maybe not what people expected them to be this year. And I think both teams are fighting for relevancy, if you will, in the conference to get back towards the top half and be able to make a push later on down the year. So I'll be watching that match, sponsored by the Righteous Gemstones. If you haven't watched it, check it.
Ooh, it's not the Holy War 2025 BYU.
Well, kind of. That's why it's sponsored by the Gemstones, the Righteous Gemstones.
All right, Brad.
I got Ohio State making the Loyola Lewis trip. I think that one's going to be lots of good volleyball there. And then McKendree Lindenwood as well. And then I also had the BYU going to Grand Canyon. And I just think, especially when BYU travels out to Phoenix, Arizona, it's a really good turnout for crowds in support of GCU and BYU. So that would be an awesome environment for those kids to compete in.
Yeah. I'm going to go and just add one because one of them has already been referenced since Theo's going to be, the Theo fights are taking on the Flyboys of Dan's. He's also going to be taking on Loyola on a Chicago trip. So, are the Matadors up to this #7 ranking? They got a tough trip coming up, and we know those teams are both playing really well. So with that, anything else that we've left out?
My one question is, do we have more than 2 yellow cards in the Lewis Northridge match between Dan and Theo?
We shall see, huh? There we go.
I'm taking the over.
Well, with that concludes our Week 11 recap and Week 12 preview of College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20. That's Brad Rothstrader of UC San Diego, Jay Hosick of George Mason, Dan Friend of Lewis, and absent but here in spirit, Theo Edwards of CSUN. Gentlemen, best of luck this week and appreciate everything you are doing for the game, and look forward to chat next week.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.